So, Javi's Barça keep on rolling. 3 points, 3 goals in a traditionally difficult game away at Sevilla, and yet the response to this one has been a little conservative. So today we're going to look at exactly why that was, whether Barça deserved to win by such a margin, and whether they were lucky to even win at all. Let's do it. So this was a really interesting one tactically because of how Sevilla chose to set up. 99% of the time this Lopetegui side is quite predictable. It's a possession-based system with an emphasis on wide overloads. The fullbacks are very offensive, the wingers tuck inside, and they do a lot of crossing. In match week 2, for example, against Real Valladolid, Sevilla attempted 40 crosses in total. That's a lot. Expecting this, Barca lined up with the typical 4-3-3, and a 4 at the back will always be the preferred system against these types of opponents, rather than the back 3 we saw against Real Sociedad a couple of weeks ago, which isn't particularly well equipped to deal with a consistent wide threat. However, Sevilla and Lopetegui sprung a major surprise by instead lining up as a 4-4-2 diamond, the very same system that Real Sociedad used. In the analysis of that game, I explained why this is a really effective system against 4-3-3, but in short, it gives you the numerical advantage in midfield and puts a lot of pressure on Barca's 6, Busquets, who can get quite isolated. Not only that, but it allows you to press very aggressively against 4-3-3, and that's the first problem that Barca discovered in this game. You can see here that both centre-backs are put under pressure, Busquets is marked, the attacking midfielders are marked, and there's a man in place to cut out the direct ball to Lewandowski. The only outball really is to the fullbacks, but it's quite risky and Sevilla's midfield can simply shift across when the ball's in the air and apply pressure. So what was Barca's response? Well, after an early scare when Araujo played the ball into a wall of Sevilla's shirts, Barca decided to simply go long. We saw several times that ter Stegen and others were more than happy to bypass this aggressive press, relying on the hold-up play of Lewandowski and the timing of Rafinha's runs to give Barca an outlet. A pragmatic approach from Javi, who admitted post-game that he doesn't like to do this, but frankly when you're structurally at such a disadvantage, it's suicide to try to continue playing out. Javi did of course have the option to change shape and didn't, and by adopting this direct approach, Barca relinquished control of the game for the first 20 minutes. Whether that was the right call, we'll come to in a sec, but with that, stage 1 of Sevilla's plan was complete: force Barcelona long and force turnovers. I've talked before about Barca committing a lot of numbers to the press, and that teams often get joy when they choose to completely bypass it, relying on duels, knockdown, second ball to move the ball forward, and that's exactly what Sevilla did. It's a pretty crude and simple to understand game plan. Get lots of numbers around Busquets and the centre-backs, go long and win the second ball. Then, owing to Barca's high line and the fact that it's a 2v2, Sevilla looked to release their forwards quickly in behind. And early on it showed signs of working. A few times they were caught offside, but it eventually led to Sevilla's best chance of the game when En-Nesyri was denied by to Spider-Man. After 17 minutes, Sevilla had 61% possession and had put together 2 very good chances. So were Barca lucky to even be in the game after these structural and territorial disadvantages? Not exactly. The one thing I haven't mentioned about Sevilla's system so far is how astoundingly risky it actually was. Something very uncharacteristic of a Lopetegui side. Yes, you shut down Barca's possession game and you look dangerous going forward, but you also leave yourself drastically short at the back. Drastically. Not only were 3 of the 4 midfielders breaking, but both fullbacks. That's 7 outfield players ahead of the ball. In a bygone era, this strategy might have worked against Barcelona, but this is an era of serious business. In Rafinha, Lewandowski and Dembele, you've got 3 absolute demons on the counter-attack, players who possess immense speed and dribbling in the case of the wingers, and Lewandowski's fantastic movement and decision-making. It should be no surprise that giving these players space, putting them in 3v3 situations, is not going to end well, and it didn't for Sevilla. If you're going to go all out to prevent plan A, you better hope to hell your opponent doesn't have a plan B. Well, this Barca has a plan B, and it's devastating. For me, that's the biggest positive to take from this game, and the reason why this wasn't just down to luck and ter Stegen's brilliance, but actually, you could flip the perspective. Barca took advantage of a very risky system from the opposition. This trend continued all game, and Barca racked up an XG of 4.52, which is the highest in Europe so far this season, while Sevilla managed 1.01. With that in mind, it's hard to criticise Javi for this approach and sticking with a counter-attacking style. The ironic part is though that Barca's second and third goals, those that essentially killed the game, weren't a result of their tactical battle at all. They were down to pure quality. And I could talk all day about Lewandowski being the best thing since Suarez, about Rafinha's immaculate ball delivery, about Dembele just being the most destructive winger on the planet, but I wouldn't do any of them justice. And this is something I'll probably have to repeat quite often on this channel, which is that tactics and structure give your team a platform to compete and the opportunity to maximize your players' quality, but after that it's down to them. And Barca fans should be very excited that in this squad is some of the highest quality of any team in the world right now. There is though another thing that I'd like to analyse, something that I've realised is actually a contentious subject amongst Barca fans, so let's talk about the midfield. There were more nuances in this game than just Sevilla being aggressive and Barca counter-attacking, and I have to talk about the midfield because I saw some reactions claiming that it's broken or there's serious flaws that will cost the team against stronger opposition, and generally I think this midfield is in a pretty good place. If anything, this performance reinforced that. Outnumbered against Sevilla, this midfield won the physical battle. Yes, old man Busquets and his two grandkids outran and outbattled a highly motivated Sevilla at home. That's no easy feat. Of course we have to highlight Javi here, who was clearly man of the match. Without his physical tenacity, aggression and ball winning, Barca simply could not have won this game. Just his recovery speed alone is ridiculous. It's not as though Javi dropped back permanently into a deeper position. He was still offering himself as a wide attacking option frequently, then shifting gears into a destructive force in the middle as soon as Barca lost the ball. He seemingly has infinite stamina to do so, and that's invaluable. Busquets too is worth mentioning. Despite having a tough time with lots of bodies around him, he covered a significant amount of ground, made more tackles than anyone else, won more duels than anyone else, and continues to play a pivotal role in yet another Barca clean sheet. But the most impressive part about all of this is that despite this hard work, the midfield players retain a supreme level of technical excellence. And this is easy to forget or gloss over. Javi, Pedri and Busquets are all shockingly good on the ball, and as is Frankie de Jong when he comes on, and that gives Barca an immense advantage against most opposition. Sevilla's pressing intensity naturally dropped, and some subtle changes in build-up, such as Pedri pulling central to make more space for Balde, allowed Barca to overturn that initial possession deficit. After the first half, they'd had 51% of the ball. Remember, it had been at 39 just after 15 minutes. And by the end of the game it was at 53% in Barca's favour, which all things considered is mightily impressive. Finally, let's talk about Javi, his philosophy as a coach, and whether we should be praising or criticising these more chaotic performances. It's worth bearing in mind that we've already seen a couple of systems and approaches in only a few weeks, but this one was different in that it was an immediate reaction to adversity. Barca trained all week to face an expansive, patient Sevilla and end up playing a narrow, direct one. The whole game plan is ripped up and it's down to the players to find solutions, and you have to say we saw a very decisive and effective one. I think that will really please Javi, not just how his players stepped up physically and matched Sevilla's aggression, but found their own way out of an unfamiliar situation. There are purists, not me, but others, who might condemn this sort of performance because, in fairness, it strays so drastically from what Javi wants to achieve fundamentally, which is control of the football and domination of games. And seeing performances like this, it's possible to wonder, is the coach having the right impact, or is he getting bailed out by the quality of his players? Personally though, I really don't think that's the case. First of all, Javi's mentality and coaching will have had a strong impact on the way Barca looked for solutions out of the press. We already know he's shown a tendency to be more expansive and direct than, say, Pep, so it's not as though the players have just taken control. It does follow a tactical trend that we've been seeing. But more importantly for me, and this doesn't just go for football but any sport, it's the players ultimately playing the game. The manager only has so much impact, and that means that the inherent ability of the performers to improvise, find original solutions and deal with adversity is a massive performance benefit. This becomes even more relevant with a tight schedule and less time on the training ground to figure out opponent-specific setups. In short, I like the signs of pragmatism from this team. We sometimes talk about rigidity and predictability, but here's an example of Barca, mid-game, being able to shift mentality, to play a completely different game to the one they'd prepared for all week. That's impressive, and it shows the immense quality and flexibility of this squad, which is going to be very handy in the games to come. Thanks everyone for watching. Someone last week noted that the comment section of these videos is filled with a lot more knowledge and reason than a lot of football channels they've seen, and I really appreciate all the thoughtful discussion that goes on. I read every comment and it's absolutely true, so kudos to you guys for that. we've got the Champions League coming up, so if you want to see coverage of those games too, make sure you leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel so we can keep this going together. Thanks again for the support, and I'll see you next time.